That warbling, keening wail brought me up further toward consciousness. Africa, the plains with the heat and dust rising, sun, endless sun. The pain, grief, and the loss, undulating wail for the dead and dying. Primal. Old, eternal. Cat. A walking, talking, bright and shiny, used dildo doll. Comes complete with musical voice box. Pull the string and get random flattering sayings, your hair's so soft, you're so beautiful, I love your eyes, etc. etc. Or one of several romantic love songs. Comes complete with all the newest dance steps. Painted in flash, charm, and fancy clothes. Deluxe package includes flowers, candy, jewelry, long intimate lunches, romantic dinners and dancing, complete with platitudes of care and love. Eric model comes complete with the high-end package. Rolex watch, a gold and ruby ring, expensive custom silk suit, and handmade Italian dress loafers, with the obligatory silver gray BMW. Also included one on-off switch, turn on and use. Turn off and leave, no maintenance, care or emotional feeding required. Look at, and smile to activate on-off switch. Frown and turn away to deactivate. Available for immediate rental, anytime day or night. By any warm and moving woman, 18 to 80. No, I'm not bitter at all. That's Eric, the man Jeremy saw me playing kissy face with in the parking lot at work. Yeah, well, used dildo doll. I can't say that I didn't know what he was. The joke that's common knowledge around work is, don't even bother filing a sexual harassment report against Eric. Everyone knows that if Eric is talking to a woman, that there's only two subjects. Work or pussy, so if you're talking to Eric and it's not about work, you must want to be talking to him about sex, that's pussy to him. It's the only two options open to either man or woman, locker room brag or seduction. No, I'm not bitter much. He's really kind of sad. His life, outside of work, is built around seduction. His clothes are chosen to be seductive, aftershave, hairstyle. Anything around or touching Eric is selected for its seductive potential. But Eric is anything but seductive. You can't go around with 2-foot-high neon letters over your head reading, "I'm going to seduce you," and be seductive. That sadness is possibly the only seductive portion of Eric. That terribly broken, hurt little boy inside a man. That you're not really sure if it's in there or not. He was married once, years ago. Why it failed no one knows and he never talks about it. Whether he was hurt or he hurt her. It closed off and locked up any depth of Eric's personality. Now all that's there is that surface of seduction and the meaningless chase for pussy. A woman would have to be a mental midget to not be able to see that. The only thing that can account for his quantity of success is that some women just want to be seduced. Somewhere in that is the key to Eric's seduction, that woman's choice. Whether it's hidden deep in her subconscious and pushed into an active choice, or she just decides to play. It's all in the choice of a woman's mind, not in anything that Eric does. Eric's seduction is so blatant that he could accomplish the same result by just going up and asking a woman if she wants to fuck. The only good thing about Eric and seduction is that he understands the word no. If you don't want to play with Eric, that's fine. Sayonara, see you later, and he's gone. He's fine with that, plenty of other fish in the sea and all that. If a woman doesn't want to play, it's a waste of his time. All that's left of Eric is constant, meaningless, endless pursuit of one more notch on the bedpost. Like me, notch. No, I'm not one fucking bit bitter. So did I fall for that hurt little boy and try and fix him? Hell no. Nobody even knows if it's there or not. Plus it's not my job to fix him, I don't even like him. So why did I get involved with him? I don't. No. In the court case of my life, I could plea a case of temporary insanity. But neither the judge nor the voice of my inner conscience are buying it. They're both calling bullshit. The sad part is, I don't know of anything else that I could plea. If a plea of temporary stupidity was allowed, it would be nullo contendere. Yeah, no contest, the judge would get behind a vote for that. So would my conscience, my lawyer, the prosecutor, the bailiff, the jury, and everyone in the audience. Temporary stupidity, with the temporary part being negotiable. The smell of dust, of heat, and that wailing, keening, undulating cry brings me farther awake. I pull my arms back from the cold sheets on Jeremy's side of the bed, and groggily turn over to read my alarm clock, 2:16 a.m. Yesterday it was 2:18 a.m., the day before it was 2:12 a.m. The day before that, and the day before that, and the day before that. And every day for the 2 months since Jeremy left. That keening cry has awakened me. Somewhere between 2:10 a.m. and 2:20 a.m. every morning, and I haven't been able to go to sleep much before midnight, no matter how hard I try. Even drinking myself stupid didn't help. Nor have I been able to get back to sleep after the cry woke me up. 2 hours of sleep every night is marking me out as a liar. For trying to show that Jeremy's leaving hasn't completely torn me apart. For as much good as it does me, I know where that keening cry comes from. It's not a noise that I can hear with my ears. You would have to be in my mind to hear it with me. It comes from an old television show, National Geographic, or Animal Planet, some documentary show such as that. It was cast in Africa, out in the savannah somewhere, where there are still some of the old nomadic tribes. It's a mourning, grief elegy. In noise and pain, the women will cry out when someone has died. An explosive keening lament, a traditional undulating scream of grief and loss. When I first heard it, on television, it cut through me like a knife. Some facet of that cry resonated with something in my soul. It was primal, it was old, and you just knew that thousands of women had been voicing this cry of grief and loss down through the ages of time immortal. I knew that no matter how hard I tried, it would be a useless attempt at going back to sleep. So I got up to begin my long, long day. Warbling, undulating, rising and falling, I could feel the cry in my throat, hear it in my mind. Mad, frustrated, I try and ignore it. Try to clear my mind like Dr. Everson has tried to teach me. Breathe in deeply, exhale slowly, in deeply, slowly blow it out. Clear my mind, try for the blankness of the river, water flowing slowly, peacefully by. Clear and flowing, and it's curiosity that is my undoing. As I pull my arms from the cold sheets on Jeremy's side, drowsily roll over and look to the alarm clock, 2:18 a.m. 4 months and 8 days since Jeremy left. Yeah, Dr. Everson, I went out and started seeing a psychiatrist. First it was a medical doctor, who I'm still seeing, then I went to a counselor. After just one session of listening to my problem, he recommended this Dr. Janet Everson. My medical doctor, David Robertson, told me that I was having physical problems, caused by psychological conditions. It only starts with sleep deprivation, compounded by weight loss. Yeah, this 5 feet 9 inches girl is down to 111 pounds. I was on the slim side at the 126 pounds I started at. My golden blonde hair is now straw brittle yellow, sky blue eyes are now dull slate, blue-gray. Marge, damn her, she asked for her sunshine girl back. She didn't have to complete that sentence. I could read the unspoken one, not the dark cloud girl. I told her something funny one of the girls said at lunch today. She just looked at me, with pity in her eyes, walked off and left. Well, no use laying here in bed, up to another day. The cry was distant today. It's amazing that something fashioned only in my mind can be so different every day, yet remain essentially the same. The cry, rising, falling, only to rise again. I can see the village huts off in the distance, see the women huddled together, wailing. Cold sheets in my hands as I can barely roll over, 2:16 a.m. 8 months 12 days since my Jeremy left. 91 pounds yesterday, now I have friends, relatives, and doctors, nurses calling me to see how I'm doing, every day. Because there's a new wrinkle in my subconscious's flagellation of my body. About a month ago, shortly after waking, I had to bolt for the bathroom. Didn't make it, as I lost everything that had been in my stomach all over the floor. Now I sleep with a wastebasket beside the bed. It's become my early morning friend, almost every day. A week later I started losing it after lunch too. Not every day but most. Dildo doll Eric left today, just turned in 1 day's notice and left. I was only about half surprised at that. He'd started coming in less than seductively outfitted. For the last couple of weeks. Hair not completely combed one day, unshaven the next, socks not matched. I guess he'd been unable to ignore the wreck that I'm slowly becoming. Not been able to ignore his responsibility in that any longer. Then he just left. Wish I could. Marge, damn her, damn her. In my nighttime soliloquies I've dug through every memory I can dredge up to understand why I did what I did. I've found a tipping point, and it has to do with Marge. I'm not blaming her, any actions I did are my own. It's just that before this tipping point, any seduction of me by Eric or anyone else had never been on my radar. Not even in my own galaxy. After this tipping point, the seed was there. Eric was standing there harmlessly flirting with me, just like he'd done countless times before. I turned my head and looked at Marge. She was watching us. Standing alongside Terry's desk, leaning over with her hands on the desk, face tipped up. I could lip read what she said, lucky bitch, and it puzzled me. But it also carried a tiny touch of pride with it. So I went and asked her what lucky bitch meant. She laughed, said that she didn't think that I knew, or that anyone else did either. But she'd taken a ride on that, meaning Eric. Said that he wasn't bad in bed, but not the best she ever had. But a lot better than most. Overall it had just been fun, and she'd bet that no one knew about it, except Naomi. Marge has been married for a lot years too. Damn Marge, I don't know how, or why. But the tiny germ of a seed had been planted. Rise and shine off to start my long-ass day. Today something bad has happened. There's a lot of women here in the village, and we're all wailing, keening that undulating cry. I've been doing it so long that my throat is raw, and I can hardly make any sound come out. I'm pissed because as I come awake as Jeremy's been on my mind. Just not in the cold sheets in my hands. I have to flop over as I vomit everything in me into that wastebasket. As I'm trying to wipe my mouth, I think that Janet, Dr. Everson is the only one left that doesn't think that I'm doing this to myself. They want to diagnose me bulimic, among a lot of other things. There's even been talk of committing me, for my own good. Maybe they're right. As I lay back down, 2:15 a.m., 14 months, 21 days since Jeremy left. 84 pounds yesterday, my bedroom mirror told me that I looked like a Holocaust survivor. I was pissed when I awoke because I'd been thinking of Jeremy. So as I lay back down I just floated back into that. I try not to do that, think about Jeremy. I know, at best, I would be considered obsessive. At its worst I think that in the end it's going to kill me. But sometimes I just want to remember. Today I was thinking of Spain. My Jeremy had taken me along on a trip to Spain. He'd gotten a commission to paint a portrait of a major Spanish corporation's CEO. That's what my Jeremy did. He had a talent that he'd fit into a niche market. Then he tried to be the best that he could be, just in that niche. A portrait painter, a business portrait painter, he said that there would always be powerful important men who wanted to immortalize themselves on a look-at-me wall. There had always been throughout all of history too. It had started with his father. He was the CEO of a small company in our hometown. Jeremy painted a portrait of his father that won some small awards in high school. His dad told one of his business friends, and another portrait came into being. He told two of his friends and more commissions came by word of mouth. Jeremy was doing pretty well by the time he left high school. He was getting more commissions and getting paid a lot more for them too. He cut the quantity down when he was in college, but greatly increased the quality, and the prices soared, and I mean really soared. Jeremy has sold paintings for more than twice what a working man with a family makes in a year. After college he just took off and never looked back. I once told him that he didn't need a home and I didn't need to work. We could just travel between commissions. One after the next endlessly, and we could have. In fact, that's what I think that he's doing right now. Traveling between commissions. One right after the other. I know that another artist couldn't have stood the pace Jeremy did. Sometimes as many as one portrait every 2 weeks. At close to $200,000 apiece, that adds up to a lot. Jeremy had two advantages that most artists don't. His talent gave him the ability to paint quite rapidly. Then the way his mind worked was his other and biggest advantage. There's a condition called eidetic memory, commonly known as perfect memory. Jeremy has a form of that eidetic memory, it's just based in images. That's why I knew that I couldn't lie to him about his seeing me with Eric. He could hold that image and study it under the microscope in his mind, for as long as he wanted to. In all the years I've known Jeremy, I've never been able to lie to him. He can recall in great detail any image that he's seen and wants to. It's fit into his business model. He'll get contact through one of several agents he works with. Or by word of mouth, go to see the client. Spend a day with them, agree on a price. Then just hang around them, informally for maybe another day. Set in his memory the look he wants for the portrait, the client's mannerisms and moods. How the client visualizes the look he wants. Fly home and paint the portrait, then ship it to them. That is one option. Another is to bring it back and present it to them when it was finished. Some clients like this more personal touch. The third option was what gave me Spain. They would pay to fly Jeremy to their home and provide for him while he was there. Provide everything: food, lodging, transportation, everything. Then he would paint the portrait right there in front of them and leave when it was done. That's the option Senor Feliciano Segovia chose, and allowed me to come with Jeremy. For over 2 weeks we lived with his family, ate at his table, swam from his beach, played in his boats, and lived life in Spain. 2 Americans tried to dance to a Spanish guitar, under the light of a Spanish moon, in an ancient cantina, in a small village in Spain. I loved it. And I've gotten to do pretty much the same thing in France, England, Germany, Switzerland, Sweden, Norway, Italy, Japan, Brazil, Argentina, and several other places in the world. Jeremy has had to do a lot of traveling in his business, at times. I didn't mind it, especially when I could go along. I'm not a shrinking violet that needs her man at her elbow to know she's loved. Plus Jeremy wouldn't be gone that long at any one time. Hey, fingers work well, and sometimes even a case of a little BOB might be needed until my man got home to tend to his homework. Hey, if I can't control my lusts for a couple of weeks, we're already in trouble, even before he left town. But when Jeremy was home, he was totally here, and that made up for his being gone other times. Service wives are the ones who miss their husbands. 3, 6 months or longer tours of duty. That's where our sympathy should go. I need to get up and start my. The cry warbles and keens and dies, fading out. I try to crawl up through the fog in my mind, hear a faint beeping noise, a strong smell, and fade out. The cry is strong with many women's voices, wailing, keening, undulating, rising only to rapidly fall. My mind tries to clear and I moan, rocking back and forth, trying to roll toward the wastebasket as it just bubbles up out of my mouth and flows out around my face. I hear some indistinct voices, feel urgent hands rolling me over. Then fading. The keening wails strong and violent right beside my ear. Singular voice that shatters into me. I feel my body spasm and jerk, bunch in my belly as the vomit flies out of me. Hands try to hold me down, pin me to the bed, everything fades. Wailing, warbling cry that screams into the dust and the heat. 3 voices, 2 others and mine that I can feel vibrating in my throat, keening sharp and new, old as time. As my mind struggles awake, I reach for the large bedpan that's against the railing of my bed, and I try to fill it. Well, I don't try to, my body does. I'd just as soon as not try to. I think that the nurse has been waiting for that. As I feel her presence start toward me. Yeah, I'm in the hospital. I guess that I've kept them running and jumping for a few days. 2:14 a.m., 14 months 25 days since Jeremy left me. 79 pounds it says on the dry erase board at the end of my bed. When my friend Chrissy got to work and seen that I wasn't there yet, knew that something was wrong. When you're forced awake at 2 in the morning, you're always the first one at work. When I wouldn't answer my phone, then she really knew that something was wrong. She flew over to my house, dug out my hide key. Found a mess inside. I was half on the bed, half off the bed. Vomit everywhere, on the floor, in the bed, and on my clothes. It was in my hair, and on my face and in my lungs. Rasping breath, totally unresponsive, little more than half alive. She probably saved my life, for what it's worth anyway. So I guess I'll be here for a while, and there's been some additions made. They know that I got stuff in my lungs when I was at the house. They thought that I might have here in the hospital that first night too. They'd given me drugs to keep me in a coma, and hadn't even thought of the possibility of me rousing. Little of the possibility of me waking and trying to vomit at 2:00 dark in the morning. But my body did try to. They thought that I might have gotten more into my lungs then. Or the next day, or the next. They didn't know how my body was telling time, but still in a drug-induced coma. It woke me at 2:00 dark to do my nightly exasperation of my stomach. Thinking of the stuff in my lungs, they're pumping me full of major antibiotics. That will continue for several days more. The addition is what they call a PICC line and a body port. The PICC line was inserted into a vein in my chest, then pushed through to follow that vein and stop just inside my heart. Then a body port was inserted just under the skin beneath my collarbone. Then attached to the PICC line. The port is a rubbery-like material that will self-seal when you pull a needle out of it. Now they can push a very short, somewhat larger needle into the port and pump in TPN. A wonderful appetizing mixture called total protein nourishment. It looks like a slightly murky, oily, milk that will feed my body everything it needs to grow big and strong. Oh right, I wasn't that before. But this stuff will bypass my stomach and my subconscious and stay with me long enough to do some good. I guess that I'll be on it for a while, maybe a long while. I told them that I could still hear the village women too, while I was in the drug-induced coma. My cry is solitary but strong. I feel it vibrating in my throat, louder, softer. Wailing, keening, undulating, lonely. The bedpan is still what I reach for. Still in the hospital, I can still see the analog clock on the wall, the dry erase board at the end of my bed. 2:11 a.m., 14 months and 29 days since Jeremy left me. 80 pounds yesterday, the dry erase board says. My mind is on Marge as it comes aware and remembering. It was just a little over 3 weeks since Jeremy started the divorce proceedings. He started them only 7 days after the parking lot. He had both Eric and I served papers at work. Then dropped the one against Eric only days later. I guess that was his way of making sure that everyone knew what had happened. That Eric couldn't hide from what we'd done. I don't think that either Eric or I will advance much in the company's regard or pay scale again. That they didn't fire us is somewhat of a surprise. Marge Dammer thinks, well, I don't know what she thinks or is thinking. That may be because both of us have screwed Eric, that we have some kind of camaraderie or girls club going. Because she tries to talk about everything with me. Become some sort of confidant for me in my troubled times. She started in on Jeremy being some kind of coward for just running away. I tried to get it across to her, in as few words as I could. That Jeremy didn't run away. He just moved out of my life, completely. So completely that I wasn't going to see him ever again, and I knew that was what he had meant to do. Then he was going to go about his business as it was scheduled. In my memory, his next client was to be in Cape Town, South Africa. Then it was to be Ottawa, Canada. The next was either Seattle or Everett, Washington. After that, I don't know. He was just going to leave me with my life and everything in it, and take his and everything in it away from me. Then she made the stupid comment, well, you must not have had a very caring or loving relationship. Because you're obviously not very broken up about it. I didn't say anything. Allowed my eyelids to float shut for a brief 2 count. Then slowly opened them to show her the dead of my soul. Her squeak of oh and the hand to her mouth as she fled from me. I knew that, now she understood. Then there wasn't a girls' club anymore. The voice was older than the woman. I knew this because this was the only one of the women that I had ever seen, everything else had just been heard. Her arms were stick thin, her fingers were bent in twisted twigs. Her breasts hung in flat dusty dugs clear down onto her belly. But the cry was the same, that wailing, keening, undulating song, with a small hiss to it from her toothless mouth. That cry, older than the woman, older than time, eternal, primal. It was still the bedpan that I reached for, still the hospital bed I lay in. Still the round face of the clock I looked at, 2:13 a.m. 15 months and 5 days since Jeremy left me. 81 pounds, the dry erase board said to me of yesterday. My mind floated in that first month after Jeremy left. Of the time my quest for sleep started with the doctors. For help with that flight in my mind to free myself from that piercing nighttime wail. Medical doctor's first words, sleeping pills. I told him that I tried every kind of over-the-counter sleeping pill that there was, and they didn't do anything. Even when I doubled the dosage, they just left me groggy at work the next day. He had stronger ones, that didn't help either. A higher dosage, that didn't keep me asleep and made work almost impossible. Ones with a different kind of base drug had the same story, small dose didn't work. Higher dosages left me so much in a stupor I couldn't function. He got a psychiatrist to recommend something different. That put me to sleep, and I stayed asleep. I heard the cry, but slept right on through. Was almost awake when I shut off my alarm clock. Slept through what breakfast I was able to eat. Slept through however I got to work and didn't really wake up until after 2 p.m. When I really woke up and thought about how I'd gotten to work, that scared the crap out of me. I don't take those pills anymore, but I save that bottle of pills to use if I really have to. Then only on a weekend or when I wouldn't have to go anywhere the next day. The next trial of sleeping pills was the worst possible. They seemed to work, but in the week that I'd taken them, crying fits, trying to break my teeth clenched in anger, thoughts of going home and ending it all. I threw that bottle away. Dr. Robertson and I decided that I'm not a sleeping pill kind of girl. He recommended going to a counselor, who listened to me for part of a session and sent me to a psychiatrist, Dr. Janet Everson. I really like her and we get along great. But we've tried everything that she can think of except electroshock therapy, nothing has really worked. Especially on that wailing cry, nothing has really touched that. I heard it even through the deepest sleep I could get on those sleeping pills, or that drug-induced coma. Janet's even tried helping me with hypnosis. First we tried to block the cry and the waking away. That didn't work, and we found that I'm somewhat resistant to hypnosis. Trying to get anything to last past a day didn't work. But if I can find a hypnotist who'll come by my house at 2:30 a.m. every morning and put me back to sleep, it would work. Now I just listen to the women's wailing cry each and every morning. Get my 2+ hours sleep that I can. Then when I can get any small break, I do deep meditations to get back as much energy as I can. After the vomiting started, it really knocked me for another loop, and medications won't even touch that. So I live on. The solitary cry is strong as it pierces the darkening sky shot through with gold, oranges, and pinks. My mind opens in amazement. It's always been the heat of the day and the rising of dust. This is evening at the setting of the sun, and her powerful voice. She's a woman full grown but young and strong. The falling sun and colors silhouette the flat tops of the acacia trees. The keening warbling cry is more structured, more paced. Someone old has died, someone loved but expected to has died. My mind is buried in a much younger Jeremy. So much so that I forget and almost don't make it to the wastebasket. Almost crying, I fall back trying to get back to that younger Jeremy in my mind. 2:17 a.m., 19 months and 16 days since Jeremy left me. TPN is rebuilding my body, some 85 pounds my yesterday mind tells me. I smile as my mind watches the much younger Jeremy run around the corner of his parents' house on Collier Street. My body tightens to chase him, bunches to jump into the run. It fades, but I remember. I've known Jeremy for a long time. That's part of what makes what I did so unbelievable and so very sad. I met Jeremy in grade school, in the 6th grade. We were never great buddies or best friends. But we were always around each other, somewhere around. Later in high school we didn't run in the same circles. He was an artist and I was a cheerleader and a jock. We were never romantically anything. But we were always around. That's how I looked at the before part of our life, before we were married. We were always around each other, in a way we always watched each other. I thought of us as two planets that revolved around each other. Always opposite, always turning in tightening circles. Each of us knowing that when it was time, we would meet in the middle and touch, join. That's how it was meant to be, and that's what happened. It can't be said that Jeremy courted me, in turn it can't be said that I seduced Jeremy. It was just time, and we met in the middle. Married and stayed joined. Until the day that I had an implosion in my brain and flew off in some unknown direction. That was not supposed to be, was never meant to be. Never should have been. I will wish for that back with every thought in my mind, every breath that I take, every beat of my heart, for the rest of all time, and I know that Jeremy will never come back to me. I know this. I feel my voice joining one I can almost recognize in the wailing cry. The strong, young, full-grown woman. Our voices rise as one, cry out into the sun-baked dust and wind. The dancing wind that carries waves out into the tall grasses. That also carries our crying keen out past the trees. Wailing, keening, undulating, sharp and powerful the keening cry, rising and falling. My body jolts as another voice joins our cry. It's young, so very very young. Her voice is sharp but unformed, tinny but crying. Heartbreaking in its song. She's too young to have a place here among the women's circle, but no one comes to stop her. Our joint cry rises and falls, a wailing, warbling, keen. When her tiny hand slides into mine, my heart swells with love and sorrow for the dead. As I roll back from the wastebasket, the thought is in my mind, the African dream is getting stronger, more vivid, more real. 2:19 a.m., 22 months and 17 days since Jeremy left me. 89 pounds was what is left of me yesterday. But the numbers don't count, ha ha, numbers don't count. I guess it's that they don't matter. What matters is energy, and mine doesn't count up to be enough. I don't have a love life, a social life, a family life, a pet. I don't have enough energy too. I haven't had a period in almost a year and a half. My body doesn't have enough left to give. I don't do much besides work and try to survive. I have to eat several small meals at different times during the day. Trying to keep enough down, long enough, to do some good. I get a home health nurse once a day to pump me full of TPN. She comes right after I get home from work. They still don't understand why I can't gain weight. I'm thankful that I have an attached garage. Less distance to walk. I also have an assigned parking space at work, to have less distance to walk there too. I also have a housekeeper that comes in and does the heavy cleaning. I guess work's been the highlight of my life, AJ, after Jeremy. They've been better than I expected them to be. First off, they didn't fire us. Throughout all my medical problems, they've kept me working. I don't need the money, but I do need to keep doing something. Just for my mind, if for no other reason. Some other things have changed at work though. Now I have a small office away from passing casual traffic. I understand, they don't want people to see me. To be honest, I don't either. Some people are just rude enough to stare. People who need me and know me, know where I'm at. With the phone I can reach anywhere I need to, and anyone can reach me. Email covers most of my correspondence. What hard copy I need to do is either picked up or delivered by interoffice carriers. My body is in trouble, and if I must be honest, my mind is too. But I can still do my job. My mind is still clear and concise enough for that. I get my projects done on time, or some even early. Even still get the occasional bit of praise for a job well done. Co-workers that need my help can still come to me and get the help they needed. I'm polite and courteous, friendly to almost everyone. Talkative, even occasionally laughing. In short, if you didn't know my story, you'd think that I was a normal woman suffering with severe anorexia or bulimia. Not a scarlet woman whose mind and body are tearing her apart. I don't feel like that scarlet woman either. I'm remorseful, and I know that what I've done is wrong. Probably no more than any other woman would be. I'm not burying myself in tears on my pillow. But my body keeps tearing me apart and I can't stop it. I'm so very very tired, so very tired. The wailing cry breaks through the dawn. As both my mind and my body stumble to rise to the sorrow of the new day, I feel the urgency and duty to be out and join in the lament. The inside of the hut is still in the deep of night. But outside, the blue of dawn is pushing the night back. I feel the small forms stirring behind me as I move through the hut's opening. Smell the smoke of newly started fires, hear the rustling of bodies, the quiet murmurs in the huts I pass. I come to the opening in the village where the voice is rising, keening, undulating. Only to fall as I join in the wail for the dead. Push power and volume into my cry as the other joins in again. Wailing, crying, keening the lament rises, warbling rising to wash the new day in sorrow. I feel the others as they gather around us wanting to know who's past. Feel little girl as she stands behind me, watching me as my voice rises with the dawn. As my body spasms, ejecting its contents and bile into that wastebasket. I feel a commonality with the African woman who started her day in death and sorrow. While mine starts in disgust and embarrassment, complete loss of dignity. Interrogators and torturers should realize the massive indignity and dehumanizing power of vomit. Their subjects would soon be begging to tell all their secrets. Just make it stop, please. Please make it stop. But me and life goes on. 2:19 a.m., 28 months and 9 days since Jeremy left me. 94 pounds, and the thought of that brings me a little cheer. I might get back to 100 pounds yet. I never understood that, why Jeremy served papers on both Eric and I. Then dropped the ones on Eric a couple of days later. He did it just to prove a point. I might have finally realized what that point was in one of my nighttime soliloquies. He wanted everyone to know that Eric had been involved, and he did that by filing the papers. But in dropping them before any legal action was taken, he told Eric that he just wasn't worth it. That in the bigger picture Eric, himself, was inconsequential. Just not worth anything. That is just like Jeremy being his cerebral self. But in Eric, he might have missed his mark. A subtle thinker is not a part of Eric, but others might have understood. I understood the rest of what he was doing. In our divorce, papers, settlement, language, everything. Jeremy made one thing perfectly clear. He left everything here for me, except the money and a small part of our investments that he took as pocket change on that first day. Then he took himself and his future away from me. He left everything that he didn't need or want behind, including me. But he left a lot for me, and even before I read the divorce papers, I knew he would. Jeremy wasn't really mad or angry at me. Not in the violent or do damage kind of way. Sure, he was hurt and angry, but mostly just sad, so very sad. A very soul-deep kind of sad, the almost debilitating sorrow that comes from extreme loss. That's what I saw in his eyes, in that parking lot, on that last day. That's part of the key. When Jeremy saw me and Eric, I stopped for Jeremy, and everything that he's done after that moment has been for Jeremy. Jeremy didn't leave me destitute because I didn't deserve it. He didn't, because the kind of man that he envisions himself as, never would. Plus he will always strives to be that kind of man. In Jeremy's logical mind, what he left me was everything of the past and the home that we had. What he took was himself and his future, and the outside money. Yes, the outside money, what of that? When Jeremy first started to do painting internationally, we reasoned, why even bring that money into the States? So we didn't, and we started an account in Switzerland. With the intention of it being a kind of emergency fund. But we found that we didn't need to use it at all. When Jeremy started doing some work in the Far East, we opened an account in Japan, and that grew. Lastly, we opened one of the more traditional offshore accounts in the islands. Neither of the lawyers knew anything about these accounts, nor did the judge. I didn't tell about them either. Could I have gotten half of that money? Probably. But I didn't really want to, that was Jeremy's part. I have never done any international work with Jeremy. I just got to go with him on vacations. The money in those accounts was his. I know that most of the women and all the lawyers in the world are screaming at me right now. But I really do think of it as Jeremy's money, besides I'm the one who killed the golden goose. Why should I get half the harvest? I guess part of that attitude comes from both Jeremy's and my feelings about money. You use money to buy things you want or need. That's what it's for. When you have more money than you need, you squirrel your nuts away for the hard winter or the possible drought. Once you got more nuts than you could ever possibly eat, what do? Stack it up and count it. Build it up like brownie points and merit badges. So what do you care when your half is more than you'll ever use? I got the 2 huge house that we had. I sold it and downsized, partly to get rid of the constant reminders of us. I got the cabin at the lake, it's really quite a large house. But I kept it for the memories, the ones there are beautiful, and I want to know that they're still there. I know that I'll never use it or go there again, but it's still mine in my mind. The vehicles we had I downsized too, into one small one. I ended up keeping about a quarter of my wardrobe. Mementos and pictures I kept, the rest I cleaned out and started over. Or at least I tried to. But my body and my subconscious mind won't let me. At the end of the divorce they told me I was worth about 5.5 million. I don't care, I'd give it all up for Jeremy. Or to get my mind and body back, but I can't. Jeremy still got the bigger half, and that's as it should be. The tired cry starts again, wailing, keening, warbling, rising. It's many voices, but fewer than it should be. Most are tired of the cry, of the song for the dying, lament for the dead. A few voices are still strong as we cry out our duty to the dead. My friend the young woman, her voice is still powerful and true. I match mine to hers and we become the leaders in the song of death. A song that we have sang far too much lately. Her and I raise the trill of the keen higher, and the others try to follow. We moved as soon as the sickness started. But it was quick and we started the songs before we could move many away. We moved farther up into this river country. We sang the cry on the way up to this camp. We sang a few as we built the huts, and the people worried that we'd have to move again. Lately we've had to sing less, so the people aren't as worried. We still have the cattle close as they stir because of our cry, our wail. I can hear them in the dust and the grasses. She and I push the song up higher again, wailing, crying, trill the keen notes higher and higher, then let it start to fall. Falling back onto the bed, my mind races through the taste. I can never get used to the taste in my mouth. You'd think that after all this time, every day, multiple times a day I'd get somewhat used to the taste, but you don't. That's one reason why I think it would be so effective for those interrogators and torturers. It's fresh and new every single time, oh joy. 2:11 a.m., 32 months 2 days since Jeremy left. I'm up to a whooping 97 pounds. Janet's really tried to help me, but like she says I'm a tough nut to crack. We've yet to crack it too. Janet's the most important doctor I have. Together we have the toughest job to do. It all boils down to just one word, why? I've always thought that once I really knew, totally knew in my mind. Why I cheated on Jeremy, I could work on that and get my subconscious mind to adjust and go back to normal. I'm sure that I could. Janet tries to temper my conviction. She always says that of course we'll keep looking. But that it might not be just one reason, maybe not even two. It might be a combination of many small things. Some we might never find. Never find a magic bullet to cure me. But I can't let myself believe that. Because I can't keep on going like this. Janet says that what she wants to have happen from our sessions is for me to learn to live my life in a positive manner. To learn techniques to improve my sleep and health. Ways to understand what's going on with my body. She feels that if we can accomplish these things, it will give me time and a way to heal myself. Then she says that I already am. She points to the fact that my weight has somewhat stabilized, in fact it's climbing a little. I tell her of how the African dream has been growing, getting more vivid and realistic. How I'm getting to be more in one of the characters. More into her personality, recognizing others in the tribe. Janet's felt that I've got some validity in my tipping point memories. That tipping point in and of itself is true. At some point I decided to allow the thoughts of the possibility of an affair to enter my consciousness. Whether it was what Marge said might be another question. Marge and Lucky Bitch showed another possible plausibility. Janet said the girls learned sports and competition today, instead of home arts and ladylike conduct. This in itself is not a bad thing, it just creates possible problems. That in just a couple of generations past, the good girl ideal was still drummed into the majority of young girls. Marge's Lucky Bitch spawned a locker room competitiveness that previous generations didn't have. Janet had several other possible reasons that are hidden imperatives in women. The one of the most unbelievable to me was her backup plan. She said that it's theorized that there is a reproductive imperative in some women, to increase genetic diversity and volume. The backup plan is that a woman who has only had one mate and only produced children with that mate. Toward the end of her childbearing years, she will seek another mate to increase the genetic diversity of the group or tribe. Or if she's had no offspring, she will move to another mate to increase the chance for some. As far as infidelity, the woman doesn't even know or feel the imperative that's pushing her toward this goal, that it's all in her subconscious. She said even though I scoffed at this idea. I had to think about it. Then she reminded me that I was 37 years old and my biological clock was ticking. But even though I didn't really want children, this imperative might have affected me. She then stated, "You're obviously feeling the power that the subconscious mind can invoke." She was definitely right about that. My whole 97 pounds in that wastebasket believed. Another she called the magpie effect. A crow or a magpie will go after anything shiny or attractive to add it to their collection, which they guard as a dragon would his hoard. Against all comers, even those much bigger and more dangerous intruders than themselves. The magpie will go into dangerous environments to get these bright and shinnies even though they know that these can't be eaten or have no other value than being bright and shinnies. They see this in women who describe her marriage as loving and fulfilling or even as perfect marriages. But suddenly become fascinated by another man. I didn't even like him, but I couldn't quit thinking about him, even though I knew he was a jerk. This can be seen as the magpie effect. Another might be a narcissistic complex. This has come into more definitions than just the Greek youth Narcissus falling in love with his own reflection in a pool, such as acquired situational narcissism or ASN. ASN develops later in life, usually brought on by acquired wealth, power, or fame, such as in actors or rock stars who struck it big. People are recognizing it in other situations too. CEOs or other people in powerful positions. People who are controlling the fates of others. Even down to managers or leaders in business groups. It leads into another phase called narcissistic entitlement, such as the rich, powerful CEO that feels he's entitled to that affair with his young secretary. Or the beautiful woman who's entitled to jewelry, designer clothes, and all the attention of admiring men. The problem this creates or allows in the reasoning for affairs is in the loss of reality, to the point of believing in their own invulnerability. In believing that they're somehow above the law or immune to the consequences of their actions. Because they're so very special. As in a woman having an affair believing that she'll never be caught, even to the point that she becomes very relaxed in hiding the affair. Also in believing that the husband will forgive and forget to the point of never hurting the marriage. That she so very much wants to remain, and the husband that she never quit loving. That she can have it all because she's so very special. But we both agreed that my ability to compartmentalize allowed me to start and maintain my affair. In that tipping point, I created a playroom for myself. In examining possibilities, I made another reality separate from my real life. That allowed me a playroom to put Eric and everything we did into it. Shut and locked the door on it, and it disappeared. And it was never part of my real world. This was the key to me having and continuing the affair. We both felt that my personality, my values, my very self, were so diametrically opposed to the possibility of having an affair, that I needed this psychotic break, this almost dissociative identity disorder. To allow this affair, I could only start it and continue it as two different people. We started down this line of thinking because Janet asked me a question. How did I handle thinking about Eric when I was making love to Jeremy? I think my response startled her. I never did, and I never thought about Jeremy when I was with Eric. They're just not in the same world. That led to this dissociative identity disorder ideas. That led Janet to the idea that maybe I'd had a psychotic incident that led to my having an affair, rather than my affair leading to a full psychotic break. So we go round and round of reasons and possibilities. Another thing Janet and I go round and round about is Jeremy. She wants me to contact him, to see if he'll come in and help her to help me. The first time we talked of this, I just looked at her and smiled. Told her that this was what Jeremy wanted to happen. He would never hit me or hurt me. He would never leave me destitute or in any form of danger. But he is also human, and he had to leave me with some form of punishment. This was it, that total loss of him. He knew that it would hurt me. That's the reason I really don't know if he'd come back. I know that he never meant for my mind to break and affect my body like it has. I know that he'd never want to see me like this. He just didn't know that his punishment would be this devastating, but this is his punishment. So I didn't want to bring him back, only if it was the last possibility of saving my life. She had to honor my wishes. The song has gone on for so long. My throat is past sore, it feels like it should be bleeding. But I keep going, keep wailing the keen. It sounds like the whole village is here. Either standing around here in the dead of night, the full dark with no moon, or wailing the song, voices and voices and voices on top of more voices. In the song, in the lament, for the dead. I feel my little girl's arms wrapped around my legs. I feel her tears as they soak through my skirt onto the skin of my thigh. My strong young friend holds my hand as our cries blend in the song for the dead. The night is still and black, the air is dead, no breath of life in it. The wind moves not, the grasses lay still. Even the frogs of the river are quiet. The birds of the air and the bugs of the trees are soundless. The bugs and beetles of the earth chirp but seldom. The Earth Mother listens to our song tonight. Yak, as my body finishes its spasms. I almost slide off the edge of the bed into the wastebasket, and I don't try and stop myself. I don't care. 2:14 a.m. 37 months 22 days, 93 pounds, damn numbers, I don't need numbers. My Jeremy's dead. It whispers in my mind. My Jeremy's dead. My Jeremy's dead. They told me that my Jeremy died. But he can't be, because I didn't feel him go. I didn't feel his soul leave, I always thought that I'd feel his soul leave. But I didn't. Is my body and mind so broken that I didn't feel him go? Was my sin so bad that I couldn't feel half my soul leave? Was my shame so bad that I'd lost that half of my soul? I know what I did, I know the hurt I caused. I know that we're not married anymore. But he was still half my soul. I didn't even feel him leave me. As soon as they told me, I went to his folks, they would know what had happened. I tried to be good, I tried to be polite, I tried to be calm. But it was hard, so very, very hard. Because my mind was screaming at me. No, it's wrong, something's wrong, he can't be dead because I didn't feel him go, didn't feel him leave me. I'd gotten Chrissy to drive me, because I couldn't drive and I knew that if I tried to, I'd kill someone else, someone other than Jeremy. His folks had everything that they'd sent back, his clothes, his passport and other papers, a police report, a DNA report. On the car accident, a car accident, oh God. I had to be quiet and calm, and I was. His folks were polite and they showed me everything. But they stared at me, they hadn't seen me in quite a while. His paints were there, and brushes. All in their bags and cases. The painting was there. I think that then I started to believe. It was Jeremy's work, so very obviously Jeremy's style, his color palette, his technique. Only it was half done, it wasn't finished. I thought to myself that he must be dead, even though I never felt him leave, he must be dead. The painting wasn't finished. I tried to be polite to his folks, to express my condolence. I just managed. Then I had to leave. We left the house, but Chrissy had to help me into the car. Then we drove off. I was quiet for half the ride home. Then suddenly I fell all apart, I knew it. Knew it was coming, and I didn't care. My Jeremy was dead, oh God, what am I going to do? I knew that I was all in pieces. I knew that I was screaming and crying, flopping all over the car seat. But I didn't care, my Jeremy was dead. I had the thought go through my head of if I don't stop this I'll make Chrissy wreck this car and kill us. But I didn't care. Then I felt it, the heat and the dust, the smell. I felt the pull of other. Then I felt the car stop and heard the tires screech. I looked to Chrissy and seen her wide-eyed terror. Then I realized it, that I'd been hearing it in my mind, the wailing cry, the trilling keen, the warbling rise and fall of the African cry, the lament for the dead. But I'd been hearing it in my ears too. Then I stopped, and it died in mid-note. The pull of the other place vanished too. We sat and just stared at each other. Chrissy, bless her brave little soul, asked me if that was the African cry, and I just nodded. She asked if I wanted to go to home or to Dr. Everson's office. I said home, so that's where we went. My own cry pierced my heart in its loneliness, as it rose warbling, keening, wailing, into the black of night. The only light was from a couple of dung fires at the edge of the village. I watched as I sang my cry into the night, watched sparks float up into that same dark. Heard the pop of heat from those fires that threw more sparks high into the night. Little girl's hand slides into mine, and she tries to join in my song, my keening cry. But she's not strong tonight, her voice breaks. Then sobs float up to my ears, then stop, as she tries again to join the cry, the lament, for the dead, only to again break and fall into sobs. I feel one of the other women come to take her back to the fires. Again I raise my voice strong and cry my duty out for the soul of the dead. Sing my song to the Earth Mother as she takes it back into herself. Raise my wailing, keening lament at our loss, as one more leaves the tribe, and the song of hope that one will be born. Because loss and hope are woman's song and her duty to sing. I don't have much for the bedpan this morning. I can't hold anything down, and yes, I'm in the hospital again. 2:12 a.m. 37 months, 26 days since my Jeremy left me. 4 days since he died. 85 pounds the dry erase board tells me. I haven't slept even my 2 hours a night in several days. If they try to knock me out with drugs, the vomit still comes up, so they don't do that anymore, and I just lay here and dream of Jeremy. While they pump me full of TPN, of antibiotics, of all kinds of pills and shots. While I dream of Jeremy. The African dream still pulls me in every morning. It keeps getting longer and more involved, more real. I don't know if I'm becoming more like her or if she's becoming more like me, but we are. Dr. Janet came by after office hours that first day after Jeremy died, when the doorbell and her knock went unanswered. The door was unlocked. As soon as she stepped in, she knew it was going to be bad. I stood in the middle of my bedroom in full song, the African keening lament for the dead. She said that there was hardly any more sound coming out than a normal spoken voice. But my voice was so bad that I'd probably been at full volume for hours. I was buried somewhere deep inside myself. She had to gag me to get me to stop my cry. At least until the EMTs got there to sedate me. My Jeremy's dead. I think my mind has told my heart that for enough times that it might truly believe it too. That my Jeremy's dead. But what an ignominious extinguishing of such a beautiful soul. Of such a loving and caring man, such a talented artist. To be in a backward, dirt-poor, Eastern European country, in a tiny village. Painting the portrait of a pornographer. Then drive drunk off a tall embankment and die. Painting a pornographer. Jeremy, you should have died at 99 or 110, surrounded by a loving family of children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. But I broke that dream, didn't I? It's little girl's voice that draws me in. Her lonely, oh so very young voice, wailing, crying, keening the song into the sunset. I paused just a minute to see the colors, those glorious gold, pinks, and flame orange. That turned the acacia trees into black shadows. The waves of tall grass into pink and golden seas. Her voice is getting better as she grows older, but she still needs my help. As I match my song, my cry to hers, I trill the keen up into higher notes. So she follows as I teach. But I reach my hand into hers, as I hear the other voice join ours. My friend the young woman, full of life and power, adds her song to ours. The Earth Mother will be pleased tonight as we sing this soul back to her. So we do it with all the power and heart that we can. Until we must let it fall, with the soul of our fellow tribesmen, back into the bosom of the Earth Mother. We stand and watch the finish of the dance of gold and pinks of fire flame orange. Of the final darkening of the seas of color in the grass. I know in my mind that somewhere there is pain and sorrow. Oh, so much sorrow. I see numbers in my mind, but I pay them no attention. Out somewhere in the grass I hear the coughing chuff of a lioness. That brings some movement in the herd, raises the key call from the herdsman. In the shadows of my mind I hear the faint whisper of 21 days followed by an even fainter Jeremy died, and I think to myself that someone else will be singing to the Earth Mother too. Farther out in the grass in the night the hyena's laughing chuckle fights with the bark of the jackal, maybe over a kill. Then the lioness chuffs again. Little girl's arms start to swing back and forth like children do when they're bored. So I turn and lead our little group, my daughter and my friend. Back to the fires, back to our huts and our sleeping skins. Hoping in my heart that we won't have to sing the lament to the Earth Mother again for several moons or more. Jeremy. I knew it was going to be a gamble. But I didn't have any other ideas of how to help both Kat and myself. Just some part of her that couldn't let go of the guilt. I meant for her to feel the consequences of her actions in the breakup of our marriage. I didn't think that they'd come close to killing her, and I didn't want her to die because of those actions. I'd been able, through my folks, to keep a little flow of knowledge about Kat and what was happening with her, coming to me. I hadn't meant to. At first I thought that I wouldn't need to, except to find out if she was going to try and contact me. Although I knew that she probably wouldn't. When she didn't even try to find out where I went. I almost told my folks never to talk about her again. Then Mom made that comment about her health failing, and I started to listen to the reports. The one time that I'd gotten semi-serious about a woman. I let it become known in our old circle of friends. I'd let pictures appear, of us, and her small child too. Along with the pictures I strongly hinted at marriage possibilities. It didn't seem to make any difference in Kat's condition. I did a painting of an Irish Republican Army hero, and I'll use the term with a grain of salt. Because I don't think that there were many heroes in a conflict like that. Just my opinion. While I was there though I met an Irish priest who I learned to respect a lot. We had a lot of very deep and heartfelt talks about Kat and I, Father Kevin Egan, and we talked over many a pint of stout. We hashed and rehashed over everything multiple times. Much to the delight of the pub owner. Eventually we decided that I hadn't done anything wrong, and she had. But I might improve on a little forgiveness, from my end. But no better could be expected from a hard-headed Yank. Father Egan had also studied philosophy at Cambridge University. So I felt that I could take his words to heart. The news kept coming with little change or maybe a little worse. So I came up with my gamble and wild idea, I would die. Not in fact, but I would fake my own death. Maybe break that cycle of guilt and get her to move on. Then if it didn't work, I'd go home and meet with her to see if we couldn't resolve this into something that she could live with. It was in Germany, at one of those functions where you can meet the right kind of people, or the very wrong kind. He was introduced to me with a name that I'll never be able to pronounce. As an up-and-coming king of porn. It's a rising and growth industry in Russia and the former Czech Republic. And he wanted his portrait done. So I figured being one of those kind of people we'd cut a deal. He'd get a portrait and I'd get to die. We didn't make it a complex plan because I didn't really envision it lasting very long. I didn't even want to appear dead for very long. So no name change or new identity, passports, or any of that. I just wanted Kat to think that I died for long enough to break her guilt cycle and let her move on. So I let my folks in on the whole plan. They really didn't like it. But also really couldn't see anything wrong with it, and everyone knew she had to let go and move on. Maybe my death would shock her enough to clear that guilt. The plan was simple. I'd go to his home village, where he had a favorite relative who was a policeman. Paint a portrait and a half. After drinking heavily in a tavern. Drive my car off a tall embankment, according to the police report. Ship back a bunch of clothes and old paint set, a half-finished portrait, and forged copies of some of my paperwork, plus a DNA report. My cremated remains would be delayed quite a while by red tape. The forged papers were the intentional weak link. They would only stand up to a cursory examination by a lay person. Someone with any knowledge of papers would spot them as fraud right away. It seemed to all go really well. The one time that I talked to Mom, she said that Kat had come over and expressed her condolences. Seemed real. Why sad but not completely broken up? The only thing that she asked for was to see the painting that had been shipped back with my possessions. That's why I'd made one to send back. I knew that it would be the one piece of evidence that she'd believe. That I'd really been there. 3 weeks, 21 days after my supposed death, Kat's heart gave out. She was buried 3 days later. I'm bound for a plane to Ireland in Father Egan. Wondering if God will forgive me. Or I can forgive myself. She died at 37.